So just for you guys to keep in mind, in the previous two videos, I mentioned this specific image has some of our edges displacing slightly in the viewport, like this area right here. So keep that in mind. You can also see that happening in this area. Now that is absolutely okay, just pay no much attention to that and then keep on modeling your vehicle. Now before we do anything else, I want us to fix this area right here a little bit more. So I'm going to be time-lapsing through this process so we can finish this quickly and move on to whatever we have to do in this episode. Now just do your best and then align it as much as possible and as close as possible to the images we have in the viewport. Now let's take a look down here around the rear fender area here. So if you take a look at this area right here, you can see there's an edge running through this side, and then we have the wheel well going over this area and then down to this side. So if you take a look here, you can see there's an edge running through this side, and for example, just assume there is no wheel well cut out over here. Okay, let's just say this side was just a flat area with no interruption or disruptions in the car body. So this line is going to run from here all the way to this empty over here. So that's what we're going to try to do in this area. So I'm going to take this vertex here and then take this vertex, and I'm going to press F so that edge kind of runs through. We're not going to cut out the wheel well area yet. We're just going to fill it as it is. I mean, assuming there was no wheel well area there, we're just going to fill it as it is right now and proceed like that. Now the reason for that is to not break the reflections. I'm going to add in 4 extra vertices in here and then left click to confirm it. Let me just press the numpad 0 so I can see through this area just to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I think this area is looking good. I wanted to raise it a bit, but I don't think that's necessary. We'll keep it as it is right now. And let's add in 4 extra vertices over here as well. Let's get out of the camera view and take a look from the top view and see what we have so far. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the camera view and I'm going to bulge these areas out a bit. I'm going to move them out a bit just so it looks like it's not a straight line but more of a rounded area. So I'm going to take these 4 vertices here and maybe the ones below as well. Now I'm going to do this for both of them at the same time. So I'm going to press G and then X and move this out a bit like this. And I'm going to deselect the outermost 2 and I'm going to press G again and then move this out just a bit. Now let's get out of camera view here and go over to the top view and see what we have. So you can see it kind of bends slightly. That's the look we're going for. I'm going to take this one and press G and then X and move it just out a little bit. So if we press B for the ruler, you can see it's not a straight line anymore. It's bent. But at the moment, I think it's a little too extreme. So I'm going to dull things down a little bit by moving these vertices inside just slightly. Not so much, just ever so slightly. I'm going to press B again and then see how far back it is this time. Okay, I'm just going to do it a little bit more. Not so much, just a little bit more. Like so. Now let's take a final look. And there we go. I think that's good enough. Alright, so we're pretty much going to do the same thing for the front area right here. So you can see we have an edge running through, or what looks like an edge running through. So we need an extra vertex here. I'm just going to press Ctrl and R and then add that in. I'm going to press G and X and move it out. Make sure it is aligned in all of the images as usual. So I'm just going to take a look at all of them. Make sure it's in the right position in all of them. And as you can see, it is. I'm going to slide this down slightly. Take this vertex and take that one. And I'm going to press F. Okay, now what I'll do next is press Ctrl and R and then add in an extra vertex here. I'm going to slide it back to about some point about here, and then over here I'm just going to align it with this edge right here. You can see it's also a little rounded, so I'm just going to take that vertex, press G and then X and move it out just slightly like this. And I'm going to add in 4 extra ones over here and use that to also round it off like we see in the reference images. Okay, so up here, I'm going to press numpad 0 to get out of the camera view, and then period to zoom into this area. I'm going to try to do this a bit more accurately out of camera view. And then maybe we can tweak it once we're done here in the camera view again. So I'm looking for that rounded edge like that. Just going to move this out a bit and kind of get that rounded edge going on. So I'm going to add one more down here, move it all the way here, get over to the top view, You know the drill. I'm going to push it out a little more to about right here. Just like we did with the top one, I'm going to add in 4 extra vertices and then align this much better. So I'm going to press G and then X, try to follow that curvature of the one on the left. Then try to define this much nicely, like that. Okay. So now let's take a look back here. I think we didn't fill this vertices here, so we're going to take those 2 vertices and then press F to fill in an edge between them. Let me get over the top and make sure these things are moving with each other. So I'm going to take these 2 vertices, press G and then X, and then move it to the X axis a bit, just so this line here is much more seamlessly straight. Now we're going to do the same thing with pretty much the top piece over here to try and create the guide mesh for the black area we see up there. So to start things off, I'm just going to go into edit mode and maybe take these 2 vertices and then press Shift and D and then press Z and move this up. I'm going to press P and select selection to separate those 2 vertices from the others. I'm going to get out of edit mode, take this one right here and then hide it. So we can work with the one we have separated up here to try and create the guide mesh for the black area up there. So it's pretty much the same process, but I'm going to talk in the first bit of this to try and align this, and then we take it from there. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is to get out of edit mode, take this vertex over here, empty, and then press Shift and S and select Cursor to selected. I'm going to take this mesh we've duplicated and I'm going to go into edit mode, take this vertex, press Shift and S, and then say selection to Cursor. So that's a good start. Now I'm going to take this one and then press G and then Y and move this to about here. We're going to try and then put it in this area here and then start things off from there. So I'm just going to press G here and move this up here. I'm going to press G and then X, move this here, move it up in the Z axis a bit, move this in the Y a bit. So I'm just going to try and then get it in that area more accurately. Now in this image here, you can see we don't have a roof, but I think we can try and then compromise without a roof and then try to see where everything goes just by imagining it. So let's start over here. So let's get back here and then try aligning things much more better. Okay, so we can see this area as well is not aligning as much, but pay no attention to that. As long as the others are aligning very good, we're good to go. So I'm going to take this vertex now that we've aligned it in that area, and we're going to extrude it down in the Z axis to about somewhere here. I'm going to press G and then Y and move this back to about somewhere there. I'm going to add in an extra vertex between those 2 vertices. I'm going to press G and then Z to move it up, and G and then Y to move this back. I'm going to move it up a bit more, back a bit more, and then try to align this in the viewport. On all the images we have in the viewport. I'm going to add in an extra vertex here, and then slide it up to about here, like this, maybe a little bit lower. Move it in a Y like this, take this, slide this back here, add another one in here, maybe press G, and then move this to about there. I'm going to add another one in here, move it up to about somewhere there. And we have to make sure these are aligning with the viewport images everywhere, like that. So I'm just going to keep trying to align things here in the viewport for all the images to about there. Remember, this one isn't too accurate, so do not pay much attention to it. Okay, now let's take this vertex here, slide it up a bit, and maybe move it in the x-axis. You can see it's not matching here. You have to get it as close as possible, so move it in the x like that. Make sure it is matching over here as well. Now if you take a look here, you can see we have another black piece over here. Now this black piece is not the line we want to be following. That black piece is the extra piece in that corner over there. So if you take a look here, you can see we have an extra piece here behind the mirror. If you take a look here, you can see it's right there. We don't want to be following that edge. We want to be following the edge next to it on the left side of it, just like I have right now. So with that done, we're going to add in 4 extra vertices in here. Make sure it is aligned in all of the views in the viewport. Gonna fix this area a bit more, like so. Looking really nice. And I'm just gonna move these in the y-axis a bit because they don't seem to be. Let me take a look here. Maybe a bit backwards, like that. I'm gonna move these in the x a bit. Just a little bit more and we should have that. Alright, so now with this, I'm going to make my way back to the rear of the car. I'm going to press G and then X, maybe G and then Z instead to move this up. I'm going to start with this area and then make our way all the way to the back of the car. So what I'm going to do first is to move that vertex to the center of the car, add in extra vertices, 1 on the left and 4 in the middle, and align it better. And then we're going to take that extra vertex and extrude it all the way back to the cut line. I'm going to switch the top left image here to another one by using the arrow keys. I'm going to work with this image here instead. So we put it on a cut line exactly as it looks right now. And we're going to continue extruding backwards, aligning as we go. Add in 4 extra vertices back there, align it, add one between those two, and align it on the cut line as perfectly as you can. Now the top right image isn't as accurate, so pay attention to that. I'm going to extrude all the way back, snap it to that empty on the back there for accuracy. I'm going to add in 3 vertices and then align it to the edge on all the images. So in the top left here, I'm going to get out of the camera view and then go over to the top view. And we're going to go into full screen by holding down Control and pressing the space button. Now up here, I'm going to define this area, give it a slight amount of curve before we proceed. I'm going to press G and then X and then move this somewhere here. So as you can see here, I'm just offsetting things a little bit more than where they initially were, just to get that curve going. If you're finding things hard to follow, just use the position of the grid lines or the empties to try and understand where I'm placing these edges and vertices. Try to make things look good. So you can see we have a slight curvature from that to the bottom. So if I should use the ruler, you can see it offsets just slightly. I'm just going to move it in just a little bit more. And then we can check with the images and see if everything is good. Okay, so now let's press numpad 0 to go into camera view and see what we have. Alright, not bad, not bad. Just going to move this up slightly, move this up a little bit more. Now let's press Control and spacebar to get out of full view, and we can see how this looks on the other images. I think it's looking good. Alright, I'm just going to move these down a bit. Alright, so let's continue what we're doing and make our way downwards. Alright, so I'm going to take this vertex here. Let's move to this area right here. I'm just going to extrude that vertex all the way down, snap it to the empty at the bottom. Alright, so now what we'll do is to get out of edit mode of this mesh right here. I'm going to hit Alt and H to bring the other mesh back. I'm going to take that other mesh, go into edit mode. I'm going to take it from this vertex, hold down Control, and then left click on this vertex to select that whole edge over there. I'm going to press Shift and D to duplicate this, right click to keep it in place, and then press P and then say selection to separate that selection. Now we'll get out of edit mode, left click on that mesh again, and then press H to hide it. Now I want to take this new one and then the old one that we have here. I want to hit Control J to join them. I'm going to go back into the camera view, go into edit mode. I'm going to take this vertex here and then this one second. I want to press M and then say at last to join them. Alright, very nice. So now the next thing we're going to do is to trace this edge at the top here, the one that runs from the front all the way to the back here and then bends to the rear of the car right here. So to do that, we're going to take these 2 vertices first and then Shift and D and move this up. I'm going to try to align this in all of the viewport and then take it from there. Now take your time with this and try to get this as accurate as possible, because even though I've done this before, it was still a bit challenging to get it right the second time. So take your time and then try to get this area correct and as accurate as possible. The top view is the hardest part to try and match. So just follow along with what I'm doing here and then get things as accurate as you can. So just working our way to the back by extruding that vertex, and adding in 4 extra one, aligning it with the images in the viewport. I'm going to take that vertex now and extrude it all the way to the back. So I'm just trying to fix things here a little bit more seamlessly. I'll add in 4 extra vertices in there and then try to align it to the image here. And also align it on the other images in the viewport, making sure everything is following us beautifully as it can. Now you can see I switched an image there to the rear of the car so I can do this more accurately. I switched the one on the top right as well to try and do this as accurately as possible. I'm just adding in vertices and then snapping it in areas they should be. I added in 3 extra ones there to try and then define that curve a bit more. Just try to follow along with what I'm doing and you should be fine. So I'm just going to move those areas out a bit just to follow the line a bit more and a bit nicer. This is just me going back and forth and checking everything to be seamlessly flowing with each other, and also making sure they're matching with the images we have in the viewport. Alright, now we're going to work our way to the front, so I snapped that vertex to the empty at the front, added in another one, and then tried to align it with the viewport. Just correcting a few things here to make sure they are flowing seamlessly, so I just go into the front view, and then try to fix this in the front view. Also making sure they are not moving too much in the reference images. Okay, we're going to keep working on the front here. Okay, so one problem I think we have here is the edge. It's not following where it is supposed to follow. So we're going to try and fix this right now. And make sure we move the vertices to the right positions they're supposed to be. It's supposed to be on the right side and not on the left side. So that's what I'm going to try to fix in this area right now. Just follow along with what I'm doing and then get things as closely accurate as possible. Now we're going to work our way in the front and then add in 4 extra vertices to try and align that curve better in all of the reference images we have in our viewport. We're now going to work our way down. Add an extra vertex to try and define that curve a bit more. We're going to add in 5 extra vertices to define that curve even better. Add 1 between those 2 vertices, and then align it on the images. Okay, so I just took that extra piece below and then duplicated it up to try and create the edge we have on top of that. You can see here I'm just moving it back slightly to offset it a bit to the left side, and then moving some vertices out of place to make sure this is as accurate as possible. I just added an extra vertex there and then merged the one above it to that. I'm just tweaking this area a bit more. I took that extra vertex back there, extruded it all the way back to where the cut line is. Added in 3 extra vertices to try and define this curve even better. I'm going to take that vertex and extrude it all the way down. I switch the top right image to the one that shows the back of the car. Add an extra vertex to try and define that curve even more. We're then going to do our best to reposition the vertex below on all the images in our viewport. Okay, added an extra one to define that curve down there. Added another one at the top, 3 more in the middle to try and define this as much as possible. I'm going to work my way down by extruding. It's not too visible here, so take your time and then try to follow along with what I'm doing. So we're just going to duplicate the one we have on the left and then start working with that and make our way to the bottom and to the right side of the car. So you can see I also duplicated there. I'm going to select those two vertices and press F to fill in an edge. I'm going to add an extra vertex between them. I'll then take the edges above and duplicate them and match them to the edges we have below that. We're going to extrude that vertex to the left. Select those two vertices, press F to fill them, and then add in extra vertices to try and define that corner even better. Define that curve a bit more. I'm just going to move it or scale it back a bit. Alright, now I'm going to define this curve a bit more. Make sure it is aligning on the images we have in the viewport very nicely.